They say you're too black, man, I think I'm too black. But do you think I'm too black? I think I'm too black. I think I'm too black. I think I'm too black. A black, a black, a black.
My shade is.
My shade is.
My shade is. My shade is.
My shade is.
My shade is.
My shade is.
My shade is.
My shade is.
My shade is probably brown sugar, cinnamon, you know, maybe a little bit of light coffee, sweet, strong, you know, something like that. Yeah. Sexy chocolate.
Caramel, vanilla.
Peanut butter, cocoa, chocolate, smooth. And that's me, baby. All the way.
Cocoa. Brown.
Milk chocolate.
Chocolate.
Caramel frappuccino, y'all.
Some say the blacker the better, the sweeter the juice. I say the darker the flesh.
I love my skin color.
Well, I enjoy it. You know, I've been black all my life. I feel it has its ups, some downs. You know, it has its ups.
I feel that my black is beautiful.
My color, I think, is unique. Very, very, very vibrant, very smooth-skinned. Like they say, good black don't crack. You know, in the sun, lovely, tanning and all. You know, we work. It's very, very lovely.
I feel my skin color is sexy, light, and attractive. And it's hot because the sun is light, my skin tone is light. So therefore, I feel like it's hot.
I feel that my skin color is unique and unique.
I feel like my skin color is beautiful. I think that light skin, darker skin, dark chocolate in between, I think it's all beautiful. All adds to the individuality of a person, and I think they're all great.
What do I think about my skin color? I think it's beautiful. Black people are beautiful. If you're a minority and you have dark skin, you're beautiful.
My skin color, I've always felt like it's something I've just been blessed with. Like, it's good to have a white mom and a black dad.
You know I love your brown skin. I can't.
In society, I think that in the business world, it's not really, skin color isn't really looked at as positive or negative. Everyone wants to keep it as everyone is equally given opportunity. But when it comes to socially, I do think that there's a difference between the way that people look at darker skinned people versus lighter skinned people. If you look at any music video, there's almost always a lighter skinned person in there. People who are considered beautiful, even in Hollywood, usually have fairer skin. Even in black people, it's usually the people with lighter skin that get more recognized as beautiful. And the darker skinned people don't necessarily get that opportunity to stand out and have their dark skin appreciated, which I think is a shame.
Yeah, sometimes, like, at least initially, like, before they know the person, there's some kind of, judgment or stereotype or something like that.
I don't really know. I mean, I know my boyfriend loves my skin color. Does he count as society? Okay. Yeah. Because certain people they judge. That's their first judgment.
Yeah, it's for the people.
I can't say directly that I've had a lot of experience with being discriminated against my color, just because I usually am in an area where there's just a lot of different cultures around. But I do know I went to Europe and I was in Poland and places where black people are extremely scarce, and everywhere people looked at me. Little girls would point, little kids would point and stare, I guess, because they're little, so they have no filter with that. And I even had a guy approach me asking me, am I from America? And I said, yeah, I'm American. And he's yelling at me saying, no, you're from Africa, you're African. I said, what? And I just kind of try to brush it off as ignorance and not let it bother me, but it just goes to show that around the world there is definitely discrimination against blacks.
Somewhat. I remember there was one summer I was in Massachusetts at Smith College with a group of my friends who were in a science and engineering program, and that particular area, I think it's, I want to say Silver or Sandy Springs, it's predominantly Caucasian people, and a little girl was walking with her mother, and she pointed at my friend and said, "Mom, look, a colored girl." Now this is in, it's like 2002 or 2003, and a lot of people were looking at us like, what are you doing here? Then we had a group of guys in a Jeep drive by and scream, "Black blank." It was just really ridiculous. But that was an educational experience for me because I learned some people are just ignorant.
Definitely been discriminated against. This is one time I was at home. I was walking from school to my grandma's house, and these rednecks pulled up in this truck, and they said, "Get out of the road, you stupid nigger," and kept driving. Boy, I never walked so fast home in my life. I swear to God, I was so scared. But yeah.
That's how I feel about the term African American and black. Well, I think that black is a color, and clearly by my skin, I'm not black. I'm more of a brown caramel, if you will. But as far as the African American thing, I think that's just a politically correct word. You know what I'm saying? That's just like, for example, if you got an elephant that's in Africa, and they ship it over to America, is the elephant an African American elephant? Like, really? Who does that? So I don't really agree with that term. I think it's just something to stay politically correct in society, so they won't have to revert back to calling people black people, you know, slavery days. But I don't agree with either.
I mean, it don't bother me. My name's Jay, so that's all that matters.
The term African American, I think for many black people who are not, who their descendants don't directly, you know, come from America, it's kind of insulting. I've heard that from many people. They would say that's kind of insulting because they would say things like, you know, no one in my family is from Africa and yada yada. Like me myself, my parents come from Belize and from Jamaica. So to my knowledge, there is no direct African lineage in my background, but the term African American is just a generalization, I think, for anyone who has darker skin or has, you know, family with darker skin, and I don't necessarily think that it's appropriate for everyone who is black, because that's not necessarily their case. If you go farther back in history, if you go far back enough, I'm sure you can find some African ancestry in just about anybody, not only black people, if you really know what you're talking about. But when I'm filling out forms, it says to put my race, I usually do put black because that's really the only option for me, and it is what it is. Like,
whatever.
Personally, I like African American because it shows the origin of my ancestors, at least on one side of my family. And it's just a way to identify with the root of where I came from. Black is just a generalization, and I'm pretty much indifferent about this statement. I have friends who take it offensively because they'll make comments like, just because my skin is brown doesn't mean I'm black. And some people, a lot of my friends are from the islands of the Caribbean, and they're like, I'm Trinidadian, I'm Bayesian, I'm from Barbados, I'm Haitian. Like, so it just all depends, but I personally am indifferent.
Oh, the term African American or black, I prefer actually being called black because frankly, I was not born in Africa, I was born American, and to put a term in front of American just seems like you're trying to separate from my country.
It's supposed to be the land of the free. I don't see how.
Well, that's the word. I think if you're gonna stereotype black people, the same has to be done for all other races. Because if you're gonna say black people from the hood, you're gonna immediately say, oh, white people from the suburbs. Some of them come from the same place we come from.
I think the stereotypes are an interesting thing because they're usually negative. As far as black people go, they're almost always negative. You know, if I'm in a room with non-black people and they're talking about rap, they're probably immediately going to look at me to verify what they're saying as if I'm some rap expert. It sounds silly, but it's happened, and I know to other people who it's happened to. The stereotypes that we all have, ghetto names. My name is Delana, and if you say it properly, it sounds like a regular name, but I'm sure you can ghettoify that thing as much as you want. And but really, I don't think that it's ghetto name. I don't necessarily think that's appropriate, because if you come from a certain culture where it's normal to have a name like Shaniqua and LaQuay or whatever, you know, if that's your culture, that's your culture. Don't hate on it. You know, don't. If someone is Spanish and they have a name like you know, their last name is Rodriguez or Hernandez or whatever, no one's going to hate on that, because that's their culture, and people need to understand that Black America has its own culture. And if that's your name, because that's how your ancestors are used to naming you, then that's cool, that's fine. So I think certain stereotypes need to just stop being looked at as such negative things, and people need to understand that everyone comes from a different culture and embrace it.
I feel that racial stereotypes are a motivator for me to do better. Because if you say I'm raised in the hood, guarantee I'm going to be owning many houses in the hood trying to progress the people that I grew up with.
The stereotype in large is a generalization. It is very true that some people are just very, how should I, it's a generalization, but for the most part, it all depends, once again, on the person, where you live, where you're located. Some people like to keep the family name. Some people like to be creative and put together the father and the mother's name, and some people just are crazy, and they name their child all kinds of mess, and you're thinking, what in the world? It's not even spelled grammatically correct. I mean, what's going on? Touch them, Lord. But personally, I'm passionate about naming a child, because I think that a person should have a name that has a meaning. Some people might get on to me about this, but there is a name that I don't particularly, I don't know. It's a name. It's Tristan. Tristan means to be melancholy and depressed. Why would you name someone melancholy and depressed? I think people should do research. Your child is a blessing from God. If you want something like, hey, victorious, like if somebody's calling, like my daughter's name's Victoria, it means victorious. So, hey, victorious, that's great. Speak life, not death or craziness. What's going on out there? My name's Akaku Malala. What is that? Is that a recipe? Okay.
How I feel about stereotypes? There's a lot of them I hate. Like, for one, all black people cannot play basketball. 2, all black people do not like hot sauce or fried chicken. 3, all black people are not athletic. And 4, all black people do not like soul food. But the stereotypes, I stereotype sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, but those are some stereotypes that I hate, that I cannot stand. I think stereotypes are basically from a misconception of a certain era in the past, that people just kind of went and judged the whole race of people. You know, there are other stereotypes too. White people can't jump. I know some white people that can jump. You know, it's just some, you know, there are some white rappers. You know, so stereotypes they're all false. You know, some of them true, but nowadays it's starting to be less proven to be true.
A lot of that is have unique names that no one has ever heard. It's not really our choice to go from the hood or girl. It just depends on show that you're from the hood. I mean, a stereotype, it doesn't really bother me, you know, because I know I'm not from the ghetto or, you know, none of that.
It really depends on just where you come from, because some people look at being African American and they think, oh, just because I'm from this part or I grew up in the hood, like I'm this type of black person. Like, I think we're all the same. It's just, I think, where you come from and where your culture is and your status, like, it really determines who you are as a person and how you're raised, and you just have to be able to beat the stereotypes. Like, I beat the stereotypes. Hopefully black people that were interviewed on this video beat the stereotypes.